subscriber took something he really shouldn't have before a class field trip, and let me just say that, yeah, it was very bad. Very bad. This is probably one of the most interesting stories I've received, so make sure to watch till the end. And with that being said, sit back, relax, leave a like to claim your free nothing, and let's get right into it. If you want to send in a story too, you can send one into my Instagram or the Discord server. Both are in the description of this video. So today's subscriber we're going to call Jeffrey, and I got the name from the comments, so leave a comment for a name. Anyways, right, so Jeffrey, he knew that he was going on a class trip, and Jeffrey was a senior in high school. At this point, right, he already got into a college. Like, he was really cruising at this point. If you ever heard like the phrase senioritis, you know, the phrase senioritis basically means, or basically refers to seniors in high school who already know what they're doing, and also really their grades don't matter anymore. I mean, for a lot of colleges, they will continue to kind of monitor your grades, and if you slip below a certain percentage or certain decrease, that they might reconsider admissions, and that's like part of the deal or whatever. But in most cases, your grades can slip at least a little bit, and no one's going to really care, and it's honestly not going to matter. And a lot of people, you know, that have senioritis don't just do that for, like, grades. They also don't attend classes, and more or less their attitude is a lot more lax and not really caring. And anyways, right, Jeffrey is a senior, and it is spring, right? So he is in a full force case of senioritis, and he has a big class trip going on, and the class trip is to go see some dinosaur fossils. It's for his history class. It's not like super related to the course, but at the end of the day, the teacher also realized that, yeah, this is senior spring. Let's just go ahead and do something fun. So anyways, right, Jeffrey was like, you know, preparing, you know, kind of excited to go on this trip, and they were going on a Friday. So it was like double hype, because one, it was going to be a Friday preparing for the weekend, and two, they were going on a field trip. Like, hey man, like, life is good. But on that Thursday, right, his friends are like, come up to him and they say, hey, this field trip's going to be pretty fun, but do you want to make it even more fun? And Jeffrey was like, I guess. Friends come up to Jeffrey and they hand him something that's like wrapped in a paper towel, and they look at him, they say, take this 30 minutes before we get on the bus, and you're going to have a great field trip. At this point, right, Jeffrey was a little suspicious, and he knew these people were a little bit sketchy, but at the same time, these were still his friends, and he knew that, like, he was like, you know what? This will be fun. Like, whatever, man. I'm already in college. I'm just cruising anyways. It doesn't really matter, and, you know, this will just make the experience even more fun. And let me just say that it definitely enhanced the experience, meaning it made it more of an experience, but not in a positive way at all. So at this point, right, the next day rolls around and Jeffrey's in a math class, because he has a math class before the history class, and while he has other classes after the history class, he was able to opt out of them because, you know, the teacher requested that he did, and told all the teachers, no, it's legit, we're going on like a field trip, he's not just skipping. So, you know, when Jeffrey was in math class, he excused himself and he said, hey teacher, can I go to the bathroom? Teacher said, yeah, whatever, make it fast. Jeffrey goes to the bathroom, takes the magical thing, the magical bean is what I'm going to call it for the sake of not getting exploded by YouTube, right? Jeffrey takes the magical bean in the bathroom, goes back to class, sits there, waits for the rest of the 20 minutes of class, is not really feeling anything, and is like, oh, did they just give me a dud or something? He said, whatever, right, it's going to be a good field trip. So eventually, right, you know, the bell rings, he goes to history class, and he meets up with all of his friends, and his friends is like, hey man, did you take the thing? And he's like, yeah. And his friends look at him like, all right, man, any minute now. And he's like, oh, okay, so it wasn't a dud. They're like, no, it takes a second, man, it takes a second. So he's like, oh, okay, whatever. And the history teacher is like, all right, is everyone here? Takes attendance. Is like, all right, let's head over to the bus. So as Jeffrey's walking over to the bus, right, you know, he starts to feel just like a weird tingly sensation. It just feels weird to him, but also in a good way. Like, he's kind of like, he's happy, he's excited, it's the weekend, he's going on a field trip with his friends, this is also the last period of the day, like, life is good, man, things are good. And he just turns to his friend and smiles and is like, life is good, man. And then his friend just starts laughing like, you're right about that, bro. Let me just say that this part was pretty good. This was a good part of the experience. And this is about where all the good parts of the experience end, right here. This is the end. Anyways, right, Jeffrey gets on the bus and he sits with one of his friends. And Jeffrey decides to stare out the window. And this is where things start to get interesting, because there's a lot of, like, foresty trees, like, on the driveway, because they have to go drive, like, 20 minutes to the place. It wasn't that far out, but there was a lot of, like, greenery, right? There was a lot of, like, I don't know, like, forest on the highway, and Jeffrey was just infatuated with it. it was just so interesting to him because as the colors and shapes and just like whirled by him, they were obviously quite enhanced when he was viewing it, if you know what I mean. They were just so vibrant, and they were kind of like making up kind of like a life of their own, bro. Like they were kind of twisting and turning, and it almost felt like they were there with them, like they weren't just a tree, like it was there as well, which was kind of a weird feeling. And he just couldn't stop watching them, even though he started to feel a little bit more and more uncomfortable as time went on, as if like these trees were trying to like talk back to him or something. He didn't like, he remembers not actually hearing anything from these trees, because when you hear trees talk to you, it's time to run. But no, he just saw them. He's just like, he felt like there was like, that they were kind of alive there with them more than like actually, technically being alive as plants are. And eventually, right, he's startled and he kind of like turns around because he feels this feeling on his like back, and it's like multiplied, and kind of like this feeling, kind of like this touch sensation radiates through his entire body. And he just realizes that his friend put his hand on his shoulder to say, hey, come on, let's go. And at this point, Jeffrey is just like, Jeffrey's on a different planet, bro. He's seeing colors, bro, at this point. No, but anyways, he's like, Jeffrey's like, oh, okay, that's good. And his friend's like, come on, man, like, let's go. We got this. And at this point, Jeffrey's starting to realize that maybe this was not a great idea. Maybe this was not the greatest idea he's ever had. And then perhaps this could end badly. So the good thing about this trip that they were going on was that it was to a dinosaur fossil museum type place, but it was really like outside, outdoorsy, because they didn't like, these weren't like fossils that were chipped away from somewhere and were placed in a museum. This was actually kind of like an outdoor place that used to be like a swamp or a bog a very long time ago, and they got a lot of footprints, and the whole idea was you and your party would walk around in this enclosed area, and it was outside, and you're able to see all the dinosaur footprints. So it wasn't like, so basically, right, Jeffrey and his friends could, venture out and not like be in a confined space where they'd be more likely, to be caught or whatever. However, this also meant that Jeffrey and his friends could venture out, which is very bad. That's also not very good. So this is where things start to get interesting, and I don't want to interrupt the flow. So today's secret word is door. Yeah, it has literally nothing to do with the video, but it used to be the old saying, and I have you guys comment on all my videos, so I'm bringing it back for today. So comment door down below. I'm going to filter the comments by, comments that have door in them. I'm going to heart a bunch of them. If I don't get to your comment, don't take it personally. I got a lot of homework to do, but yeah, I'll do my best. Anyways, back to the story. Anyways, right, Jeffrey and his friends, they make their way to where the rest of the group is, and the entire group, with the teacher leading the way, moves kind of to, where the dinosaur, like, footprint museum type thing is. And the teacher kind of goes to them and says, hey, everyone, gather around. So they all kind of gather around. At this point, Jeffrey and his friends are barely able to follow directions or follow instructions, but they're able to follow this. And they also hear the next thing that the teacher says. The teacher says, all right, guys, I don't really have anything planned today. Feel free to wander around and look at what's cool. And this was both a good thing and a bad thing. It was a good thing because, Jeffrey and his friends could, escape, being viewed all the time, but also that meant they escaped being viewed all the time. So the positive was, oh my God, my voice just collapsed in on itself. Anyways, right, so the positive was, right, they weren't going to be caught right away, but the negative was that they had no supervision, and they were definitely not in a position to supervise themselves. So anyways, right, Jeffrey and his friends, they get together, and they start just, like, exploring around. And let me just say that it was a very interesting experience because they were just like going around touching things, looking at things. They all found a fossil, and like when Jeffrey saw the fossil, like it was like a fossil of like a fish or something. He swears the fish was still like swimming in a stream. However, it was like very clearly a fossil in rock, right? But that's just what Jeffrey remembers. I mean, he's like, yeah, okay, my memory might be a little altered. Maybe, I don't know, perhaps. But things start to turn bad when Jeffrey kind of like, he's staring at this one rock, this one fossil, for what he didn't think was a long time, but it was apparently like 5 to 10 minutes of just intense like admiring of this rock. And once he's done, he looks up and he looks to his left, he looks to his right, he turns around him, and his friends are gone. No, and he like scans around like much like wider distance. There are people around him. He's not alone right now, but he doesn't recognize any of them. They're all tour groups from, there's like an old like couple with their grandkids most likely. There's like a married couple with like kids or whatever. None of the kids in his class, none of his friends, the teacher, they're all gone. They're all not there. And he starts to freak out. He's like, did they all leave me? Like, where did they all go? Anyways, right, so at this point, Jeffrey starts to panic because he's separated from his group and he doesn't know where anyone is. And obviously, he can't just, like, it would probably be pretty easy for him normally to be like, oh, let me just, like, find them. But at this point, right, he's not in the best condition to be finding anyone. He's kind of just struggling to get by as it is. So with this kind of induced sense of panic, all like them, like how everything around him used to be like mysterious and interesting and colorful, it all kind of became like super stressful, and he became very anxious as like everything around him started like, it almost felt like it was closing in on him, because like everyone he knew was like, they weren't around him, he was gone, and all of a sudden he was all alone by himself. So he starts wandering around, and he's just kind of walking around frantically. And, you know, he kind of, like, looked around, and the people who looked back at him kind of gave him this face of, like, is this kid okay? Is this kid gonna attack me? Like, because, like, Jeffrey was, like, when he was running around, he was not doing so, like, discreetly. He was, like, sprinting around, wide-eyed, just like, where is everyone? Where did they go? And Jeffrey even went up to some random people saying, hey, like, where did they go? Where are they? And the people would be like, I don't know, sir, I'm sorry. And Jeffrey would like run away to like a different corner trying to find them. And at this point, right, when, you know, Jeffrey thought all hope was lost, he checks his phone because his phone starts buzzing. And, you know, who was calling him? His friend. Obviously, he should have thought to do this before, but, you know, as I said before, he's not necessarily in the mental space to be coming up with the best ideas ever. So, yeah, he could have easily called him before, but he didn't. But anyways, he's like, oh, my God. Yeah, he picks it up. He's like, hello? Where are you guys? Where are you guys? And he's like, where are you? And, you know, Jeffrey's like, I don't know, man. And his friend's like, can you describe the environment around you? And Jeffrey says, there's this really big red tree, and it was like a tree with very specific color of leaves or whatever, and the friend's like, I know exactly where you are, don't go anywhere. So anyways, right, Jeffrey's kind of like waiting around there for a second, still kind of like paranoid and worried that like the friend would never come, as like, I don't know, the monsters in the walls would come out and get him, or the dinosaurs would come back to life and eat him or something. And as Jeffrey's like waiting there, starting to like really worry, his friend comes up to him, grabs him by the arm and says, dude, we have to go, everyone's waiting on the bus. And that just like completely freaked Jeffrey out. He's like, for how long? For how long? And his friend's like, dude, they're just filing on now. If we get there, it's just going to seem like we're late, but it's not going to be suspicious. You need to come with me. Do not act weird. Do not look at anyone. Do not respond to anything. Because at this point, Jeffrey's friend was much less on, or he was just doing better, or he was more with it than Jeffrey was. So he kind of like took control. So they start power walking back to the bus. And eventually they get there, and Jeffrey's friend's like, good. Because kids are still getting on the bus. So he grabs Jeffrey, and they get in line. And they realize that like they have to check in. So that means they have to pass the teacher, look him in the face, say their names. And Jeffrey's friend is like, dude, okay, this is going to be really risky. He's like, Jeffrey, I need you to just do something for me. Jeffrey's like, yeah, what's up? I need you to do a very simple thing normally. And Jeffrey's like, okay. His friend's like, Jeffrey, I need you, when we find the teacher, look at the teacher, say, Jeffrey. He'll check you off, and then I need you to walk to the back of the bus. And Jeffrey's like, okay, I can do that. So anyways, right, they get to the bus. Jeffrey's friend goes first, and he turns around before he's like, Jeffrey, please, man, just do it for me. And Jeffrey's like, okay. And Jeffrey's friend, he goes there and does what he needs to do. And then, eventually it's Jeffrey's turn. And Jeffrey, goes up, looks at the teacher. The teacher looks up and then quickly looks down because he's busy, like ticking off names. And he's like, oh, Jeffrey, like, what's up? You can go to the back of the bus. So Jeffrey doesn't even need to say anything. And he barely looks at the teacher, which is pretty lucky because Jeffrey had a very weird look on his face, if you know what I mean. And, so Jeffrey walked to the back of the bus where he was sitting with his friend. His friend, like, sees him, is just like, dude, how did it go? What happened? Are you good? And Jeffrey looks at him, gives him the thumbs up, and just sits down. Subscribe if you haven't already, and then now go watch another video. There's some on screen, some that are recommended. Watch it. You'll make me very happy. Bye.